Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina.
Welcome to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taramina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, blogger of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts in between Terminus on OAA Neighborhood Television. I'd like to welcome our friends at Oxford Community Television as well, who is also video recording this podcast as we speak. Very interesting things coming up over here the last week and a half. Of course, spring sports just started up. But when you look at the teams, I think I'm curious to see what happens with them. I'm very curious to see what happens. News going around. Of course, we got boys basketball regionals coming up. We got 4 OAA teams remaining. They all play each other. And also there are no girls basketball teams left. So we'll go over what I think next year is going to happen in a couple of minutes. But when you look at the situation, we got to go first with the breaking story out of Mount Clemens. Of course, Mount Clemens is in the Macomb area conference. They're in the Macomb. They're in Macomb County. But we like to thank Dub Tyler of MI Preps in Macomb and Nick McKay of the Detroit Free Press giving us this news about the what's going on over there at Mount Clemens. Of course, Mount Clemens has been a team that's had a lot of controversy. I mean, like, they've had 6 players transfer out of the district. Of course, they had they had a new coach this year. Willie Betts entered, replacing Jermaine Jackson. Jermaine Jackson, of course, he was a coach. He was an NBA basketball player at Mount Clemens before, and then he ended up having he had his own training facility which trains basketball players. He was fired in only 2 seasons by Superintendent Deborah Wallstrom for not only the transfers, but also he inflated his son's scoring average. Of course, he had his son play at Mount Clemens, but what happened was one of the teachers over at Mount Clemens ended up calling the Michigan High School Athletic Association without prior knowledge to the athletic department, and they said that Mount Clemens had an ineligible player and on the team, and he played on that Wednesday, and he was supposed to play on that Friday. So the MSHA found out about it and ended up calling the athletic director up and telling him that Mount Clemens has to forfeit their 2 games, one against Warren Michigan Collegiate, and the other one who they were supposed to play on that Friday against Madison Heights Bishop Foley. Of course, Bishop Foley ended up winning the district on that via forfeit, and there are a lot of ramifications to that when you look at what happened over there. When you look at Bishop Foley's part, it hurts them economically because of the food they lost, of the money, even though they get 10% of the costs. But also this brings up a question: what happens? Do you need? It opens up a question. How do you know if your player is eligible or not eligible? We don't know if the coach did. The coach, it looked like Betts did not know about what happened over there with the player, or the grade. So that's got to be like a communication error on both the player and the coach, and the entire administration. So everybody here is at fault when you look at it with this situation. I know communities like Lake Orion, Oxford, they have eligibilities they bring every Thursday. They have the students do that, just for them to be eligible the following week. And that's a good policy. You know what I mean? I think that's a good policy for both, for kids to bring their eligibility, give it to the coach, 2Ds or 1E, you're not eligible to play. But in this case, it looks like it's a miscommunication between the administration, the player and the coach, because the kids found out about it and the coach found out about it on that Friday. They were preparing for a pregame meal, before going over to Bishop Foley to play in the district final, and then to hear the news from the athletic director, it hurts, especially for this team that finished 15-7. loses 8 seniors, 2 of them who played basketball, but, there's a couple questions I do have here when it looks at what happened here. The first one I'm going to look at is the teacher. Did the teacher, I personally think should have notified the athletic department that this kid was not eligible to play. I think out of fear, maybe that they must have felt the athletic department could not have done anything about it. So I guess they must have figured out, why. Just call the MHA directly and basically get them to know about it. It kind of felt like the teacher kind of felt that, that the athletic department would have supported the player, playing, even though it's like an opinion, in my opinion, but I guess it's probably what happened. But to take away the team's whole season, it hurts these kids, and they were victims of the situation, even Coach Willie Betts, Wiley Betts, he was a victim of the situation. When you look at Bishop Foley's standpoint, we mentioned earlier the economic standpoint, of course, they ended up going to the, under Coach Jermaine Jackson, last year from Mount Clemens, this was a team that was 45-4 in his 2 seasons, and only 2 seasons there. They went to the Class C quarterfinals in 2014, where they ended up losing to Detroit Consortium. But you got to keep the grades up, and another team that should be rightfully upset is Warren Michigan Collegiate. They played them on Wednesday. They played Mount Clemens Wednesday, ended up losing. They felt, and this is my opinion, I felt that Michigan Collegiate should have had another chance to play for the district title. They should have been the ones playing Bishop Foley for the district title, and instead they're going to get the title of Bishop Foley, because Mount Clemens, Warren Michigan Collegiate got cheated. They did. They literally did. How can you tell a senior, at least 3 seniors who played their last basketball game, against a team that had an ineligible player, I feel bad for you. You got cheated out. They gave you the win. They gave you the 2-0 win instead of, and I should be still moving in the tournament, not having to play my last game. And this is what happened here. So I feel for that staff over at Warren Michigan Collegiate. I know they're upset, and they have every reason to be upset with that situation. This has been a crazy summer over at Mount Clemens. This has been a really, really crazy season. They end up losing 6 transfers. 2 of them are at Macomb, Dakota. One is at Detroit Western. Another one's at Detroit Renaissance. I'm not sure where the other ones are at. But this is a team that clearly, they did have a lot of basketball talent, but also a lot of people, they could have played. Jermaine Jackson was a heck of a coach. He played in the NBA. He did a good job with these kids, even though he was fired. 45-4 in 2 seasons says a lot. But when you look at the academic standpoints of it, Wiley Betts said, these kids, they were strictly on academics. They followed everything academically. They were doing well in the classroom, what I heard, even though he had to suspend 1 player because of poor academics. I just think, to take away a team season with 8 seniors, 2 of them who have not played basketball before, it's an unfortunate situation, and those kids, to see what happened here, and this teacher going without knowledge of the athletic department, knowing what happened, I think it's a disappointment, to be honest with you, to see what happened with the program. This was a team, of course, they finished 15-7. But, they're 15-5 to close out the year. But I just think personally, when you look at the situation that Mount Clemens has had, it's been a very turbulent offseason for them. And we don't know the question is going to happen this year. Of course, like I said, they lose 8 seniors. I don't know about their sub-varsity teams. I really don't know. It does describe a lot of, there's been a lot of academic issues surrounding this basketball season, of course, and we all know the situation over at Bloomfield Hills with Dwayne Graves, and also the cheating scandal over at Oak Park, what happened over there. But it kind of reminds you, it kind of like says one thing. If you do your academics, if you do well in the classroom, you deserve the right to play. And I said this a couple weeks ago. I said, if you academics come first, then athletics. And that's what I guess happened here. I think it was an honest mistake by, that the coach didn't know the player was ineligible to play and he played him anyway. But still, it's basically a situation in which some of the team, he didn't know about it. And I guess it's what happens here. Now, I think something's going to have to change, Bringing a paper would definitely work, Like, have the kid come. I know Lake Orion has this policy. I know Oxford has this policy. I know Clarkson's got this policy, and the Rochester schools and Troy schools have this policy. But also Birmingham as well. But you gotta have your student athlete bring a paper, an athletic eligibility. It's called an athletic eligibility. Have him or her fill out your paper during the day, during class, and you got a code of conduct and you have your grades, and have the teacher sign it, I think that would be the right thing to do here. And if you're a teacher, I do that, for about during the school day, and then when the day is over, the student athlete is responsible to give the paper to your coach, to give it to the coach, because that tells me clearly that the coach knows, and it tells me that the student knows. Now, I know we're in technology currently today. You can do it via computer. I just don't buy that because it's not, sometimes, there's going to be days where teachers are going to be just, they'll be lazy, They'll probably just say, I ain't going to care, or probably not even change the grades, at all. But I just think personally, for student athletes, they just got to do an academic eligibility each day, each week, each Thursday, and then and then you do the work, and then basically see what you get, be a good student, a code of conduct, because I know in Lake Orion, I know 2Ds and 1E doesn't get, if you have 2Ds or 1E, you're ineligible. If you have a 4 or 5 conduct-wise, you're not eligible. It is what it, I think that would be a perfect problem to fix if I'm Mount Clemens, because that will definitely help with the system. I think that would fix one problem, and that will know for the players, that will know for the coaches and the players, that keeps everybody in line. I think there was a huge miscommunication here. And, unfortunately, those 8 seniors at Mount Clemens had to pay for it with somebody playing in the district playoffs, and it ended up costing Mount Clemens a chance to win a state title, and also it could have possibly cost them a chance to play their arch rival, New Haven, because I know Mount Clemens and New Haven are arch rivals, but, when you go and play, academics always comes first, not the other way around, So once again, I'd like to thank Dub Tyler from Prep Zone Macomb, known as Macomb Daily, and also Nick McCabe of the Detroit Free Press for getting us this information on what's going on over at Mount Clemens. It is what it is, unfortunate, and and unfortunately for those kids, it's gonna have some pain to go into the circumstances of what's going to happen. Now, when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about we're going to recap the regional for the girls basketball team, and then we're going to talk boys basketball here on OAA Now. Hello, Lake Orion. It's Anthony Taramina, co-host of Between Taraminas. I want to let you know of a new show called History Now. In it, we're going to talk about global, national, and political events that occur in our lifetime. We're going to also have guests and also have co-hosts as well, and also plenty of surprises. Catch us on History Now here on ONTV. Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taramina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, blogger of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts Between Taraminas on OAA Neighborhood Television. Of course, we got girls basketball, of course, coming to a close on closing out the 2014-2015 season with two league teams ended up going down. Southfield Lathrop losing to Birmingham Marion. Of course, that was a really good game right there over at Southfield, and Stony Creek losing in overtime to Waterford Kettering. Both those teams, ironically, are playing each other in the quarterfinals. Birmingham Marion and Waterford Kettering. Of course, we're going to recap the first game, which was Southfield Lathrop and Birmingham Marion. You look at what happened over there in that game. I mean, Southfield Lathrop played very, very well for about a half until the second half, where Birmingham Marion ended up going to more of a pressure man type of defense, in which they've had a lot of experience knowing about that under Coach Mary Cicerone. What she does a magnificent job with that team, of course, but you got to have players that execute it, and of course one of those is Jada Robinson. Of course, she's a good player. Carol Hozinski's also a good player, and then you have the twins. I mean, but Southfield Lathrop's a very young team. When you look at it, but they got some solid players. Daisy Church, good player. Antoinette Miller, of course, transferred from Ferndale. She had a good year. Of course, you had the Bello twins, Paige and Taj. They're both good players. But when you look at what in that game, I thought personally, Lathrop was leading at halftime, 19-16. I thought to myself, can Lathrop really do this? You know what I mean? Can they really do this? I kind of like what Southfield did for that game with Lathrop, because they put Southfield Lathrop on the home side, even though they were in their black jerseys. Birmingham Marion, of course, the guests were in the white. Of course, Southfield Lathrop and Southfield are both very close to each other. Of course, Southfield a little bit down south of 10 Mile and Gloucester, whereas Southfield Lathrop's off of 12 Mile. It's kind of, I was very pleased what Southfield did with that. But when you look at in that game, I just thought personally, Birmingham Marion's got they're vulnerable in some areas. If you shoot a high percentage against them, if you can shut down, they don't really have a true four that can really do some damage. Birmingham Marion can be beat. There's no doubt about that. Southfield Lathrop did for about a half, was they shut down Birmingham Marion. They shut them down. 16 points. It's not bad when you shut a team down to 16 points. And to see what happened over there, and unfortunately, Birmingham Marion, they got a very good team this year. They ended up getting going, and it put a lot more pressure on Lathrop to do well. And what ended up happening was, they ended up going on a big run. Lathrop tried coming back, They got it within 7, but in the end of the day, you got to give Birmingham Marion a lot of credit, because they used their experience, against Southfield Lathrop. Of course, but when you look at the future of Lathrop, they're going to be fine. I think Southfield Lathrop's fine, heading into next year. They'll have more depth. They'll have more, but when you look at that game, when you look at that game, it was a tough way for Coach Michelle Jackson Marshall to lose that one. But, you cannot Lathrop had a heck of a season. They won the red, but it is what it is, with Southfield. It is what it is. Birmingham Marion right now is a whole nother team, different team right now. There's a reason why they're one of the top teams in the state. There's a huge reason why they're one of the top teams in the state. And, Lathrop put a heck of an effort. I thought personally Lathrop had a chance in that one, even though it was a very slim chance. But I still personally thought Lathrop would have had a chance to knock them off. They're third in the state, for goodness sakes. And then the other game to recap was Stony Creek. Of course, Stony Creek had an interesting year. They won the tough Lake Orion district. Of course, that was a very tough district to win that. And then, of course, they went to overtime with Waterford Kettering. Of course, Waterford Kettering's an interesting team. They're a good team. 7 seniors. Scott Woodhoff's done a very good job with this team. They've only lost one game. That was to Plymouth Salem in the Kensington Lakes Championship game. Of course, Plymouth Salem was actually shocked by Heartland the other day in the regional final, which that to me was a shock as well. Because Heartland's got a very solid program. Of course, they have a very good coach who coached 32 years at Milford before taking over the gig at Heartland. This is only his 6th season over there. But you gotta give props. You gotta give props to what happened over there. You gotta give props to it was a good game. It was a heck of a game. You gotta give props to Waterford Kettering. They found a way to beat Stony Creek. I was surprised they shut down Maria Zandy. Of course, Zandy had 31 against Rochester Adams in the district championship game. But you gotta look at the expectations over there. Like I said before, Waterford Kettering, this is a whole different team. Stony Creek, I was very concerned with Stony Creek's depth heading into that game. They ended up finding a way to basically just go in there, and, they ended up playing well, but there were some shots that could have fallen, but there were some that could not have fallen. But it was a tough way for Stony Creek and Coach Brad Crichton to go down with heading into that regional final and that regional semifinal loss. And then now with that loss, there's now no more OAA teams remaining in that district now. Remaining in the entire girls basketball side of the draw. Of course, this is the last week for girls basketball with the quarterfinals starting Tuesday, and then you have the semifinals Thursday, Friday, with the state finals on Saturday to close out the girls' basketball season. And, of course, you have the boys that next following week. So, it gives me an idea to talk about next year a little bit, heading into next year. Sorry about that. I need a drink there. But it gives me a good idea to talk about next year. Looking at the possibilities of next year. Of course, the top team, I think next year for sure, it's going to be Southfield Lathrop. Of course, Michelle Jackson Marshall returns a lot of the starters. I think all our starters are back on a team next year. Of course, they're going to probably play AAU ball for her. And then you got, I think Harrison's the second best team in that league, in the OAA, because you got Amber Steffens and Kristen Nelson coming back. Even though they do lose Kyla Rowland, of course, Rowland was lost for the rest of the year, due to an hand injury, that she got hurt with in the middle of the season, of course, against West Bloomfield. When I look at 3, Adams is still going to be very good, even though they lose Raven Owusu and Amber Jameson. They returned Ryan Owusu and Maggie Rogers for Coach Shay Lewis. Shay Lewis has done a magnificent job in the first year at Rochester Adams, even though they had a losing record. Stony Creek is my number 4 team, because when you look at Stony Creek, they do lose Maria Zandy, of course. She's not going to be playing soccer. But you do have Allie Voss coming back. You still got Emily Sola coming back. Stony Creek, I think, is going to be fine. It's just the problem is they don't really have that true point guard next year. When you look at that team they have back, I think they're going to have some struggles heading into next year. When I look at my number 5 team, in the league. I still think Lake Orion is number 5 because of who they got coming back. You got Evelyn Wishmeyer, Lauren Thorne coming back. You got Jordan Marchese taking over the role of point guard. They still got to find a shooting guard, and they still got to find a true 4. I don't think Delaney Hahn's the answer right now for Lake Orion at that 4 spot. I mean, but they still got to find, I think, a solid interior game. I think if this team wants to do something next year, they're going to do something next year for sure. I mean, we'll see what happens with Orion. I got them ranked 5 early on. Of course, number 6 is Clarkson. Of course, Clarkson loses Erica Davenport. I mean, she finished 4th in the Miss Michigan for Miss Basketball of the state of Michigan. It hurts Clarkson. I mean, I personally felt Davenport had a good shot to win that award. I was a little disappointed that that the state that the writers, the Detroit Free Press, gave it to I think it was Tierra Smith of Goodrich. She's a good player. She's deserving of that award. But I felt personally with what Davenport had to carry with that team. If you look at a team that really had to rely on their true star, it was the Clarkson Wolves. And you've seen how in that Clarkson versus Harrison game, whereas Davenport was not playing, Clarkson kind of struggled. And, Davenport was so reliable, to one team to have a success. And I think, I personally felt Erica Davenport should have had Miss Basketball over there. I'm kind of disappointed she didn't get it. And you lose a talent like that. I know Clarkson next year's got Kayla Lugenbach coming back. You got but also you lose Ashley Skaggs. But you also got Kayla Russell coming back, who I think is going to be a good player. But Kayla Lugenbach looks like to be a very good stepping piece. Especially that 5 spot. And you got Molly Nicholson possibly coming up from JV, and she could be your 4. So the cupboard's not bare over at Clarkson. But I got them ranked 6 right now in that poll in my early season for next year. Number 7, of course, I got Southfield. Of course, the Blue Jays won the gold last year. This year, 18-2. When I look at Southfield, they return a lot. They got Crystal Lindefoe coming back, Sterling Madsen coming back for Jamie Gentz. When I look at it here, I think maybe this competition benefited Southfield. I think what helped Southfield was what helped them was that schedule, but also if they would have been up in the division where they were in the red or in the white, I think they would struggle. The blue, I don't know if they beat Royal Oak or Oak Park, but like I said before, I just think when you look at the teams, I think Southfield's in a very good spot next year for to do some damage heading into next year. My number 8 team here I got is I got Oxford number 8, even though they lose Jessica Murphy, Sherilyn Bandis, Sky Donaldson. They lose, and of course you lose Janie Bukolich. You still got Abigail Bukolich back. You got Madeline Morris, who's a deadly 3-point shooter. The question for Oxford is, who plays your point guard? Who plays it? I know they got a very good JV player, who can play point. And then you got the issue at the 4 or 5 spot. And also you don't know if Oxford's moving up. If they move up, I think they're in trouble. I really do. Because when you look at the situation with Oxford, this is a team, they lose a lot of players, they lose a lot of their punch, but they're going to have to, and if they move up to the red, I think it's going to be a long season for Coach Stephen Emmert next year. But Oxford right now, I got them number 8, and I got them number 8. Of course, number 9, I got number 9, I got number 9, I got number 9, I got oh goodness gracious. Oh, I forgot. I got Seaholm as my next team at number 9. Of course, you got Mackenzie Harbort, Dana Horman coming back. When you look at what January Haleski has done over there at Seaholm, she's done a very good job over there, of course. But this year you had a lot of distraction, of course. Molly Stumberg leaving to go to Chicago. I think that was a disaster waiting to happen with that one, because it kind of hurt Seaholm a lot, because it took away your 5, because she was your 5. Dana Holman's your 4. Holman had a heck of a year. Dana Holman, I think, is due to have a really big year next year, her junior year, to go along with Mackenzie Harbort. It would not surprise me if Seaholm makes some noise next year. And, of course, my number 10 ranked team, I'm going to go with West Bloomfield. Of course, the Lakers, they had a good year. I mean, even though they had a lot of close games, a lot of close losses, but they lose Rachel Harnish, who's a key piece of that team. They lose Crystal Glass, who ended up getting a scholarship somewhere. I heard. So my congrats to her. But when you look at West Bloomfield, especially with that class coming in, I talked to Zach Hilbers, their head coach at West Bloomfield. He said that they got 3 freshmen coming up who could play right away. So that's very promising right there. And then you got Charlika Stubbs coming back. I think Taylor Pierce is coming back. I think she's a senior. I mean, she could be a senior next year. So West Bloomfield's a team I think to watch heading into next year. When you look at and then the rest of the teams, you got Bloomfield Hills, I think will make some noise next year. You lose Amanda Moss, you lose but you still have Amanda Sape. You still have Kathleen Pruna. You still have Victory Franklin. I think Franklin goes in the starting lineup. I think Bloomfield Hills will surprise some people next year, even though their bench plays. I'm not sold on their bench, but I like this Amani Wright girl. You know what I mean? I think she's gonna be that. She reminds me a whole lot. She reminds me of she's a scoring first type of guard, and I think that's what's going to happen at Bloomfield Hills. I think Amani Wright's going to be a huge difference maker next year at Bloomfield Hills. So I expect Bloomfield Hills to be a very dangerous team. You put her and Amanda Sape along with Kathleen Pruna, so I think Bloomfield Hills will be fine heading into next year. Troy, I'm curious with them. I think they're going to struggle a little bit next year. They lose a lot. Royal Oak, they lost Addie Salatari. Oh, no, sorry. They lose, Allison Karpinski and, Bailey Horan. But I'm curious to see what Brian Zapata does. He's got 3 6-footer girls up in freshmen who were he got 2 6-footers who were very good. I expect them to probably move up to varsity, next year. Oak Park, you don't know what consistency, you know what I mean? They'll probably have they've had some consistency troubles over there. When you look at it, Rochester's a team. I think you got, they lose a lot of their inside game, but you still got Jenna Norgrove. You got Zoe Schultz. You got but you lose Shakira Hodges. Rochester's an interesting team to watch next year, heading in that campaign. Hazel Park's the team I think you got to look at, especially year 2. New coaching staff, of course. First year, it's always the hardest. Your second year, it tends to take that building block. I think Hazel Park's the team to watch hanging into next year. Troy Athens is another team to watch, I think, because they got some talent up there. And of course, Ferndale, they struggled last year. Expecting to struggle again next year. But when I look at the rest of the league, of course, it's going to be a very, very interesting campaign. And you got Avondale. Avondale, of course, they still have Addie Salatari and Melissa Smith coming back. But the question is going to be for them, is going to be their guards, is do they have the guard play to put them over the top? So, like I said, we'll see what happens heading into next season. So, like I said, we'll leave it at that. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about boys basketball district recaps and boys regional preview for 4 OAA teams still in it here on OAA Now. Welcome back to OAA Now. Sammy Termina, blogger, The Dragon's Den, blogger of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts between Termina's and O1 TV. Look at boys basketball, of course, recapping the districts, recapping them. We're going to first, very interesting district. There's 4 regional teams that remain. Clarkson, Avondale, North Farmington, and Oak Park still remain in the districts. But let's go first. Let's recap each district, what my personal thoughts were. First one we're going to do is going to be at District 42. It was at Detroit Collegiate Prep at Northwestern. Ferndale was a team that I thought personally had a great shot at winning that district. It unfortunately didn't happen. They ended up losing a heartbreaker in overtime. You know, Ferndale had a heck of a season. They played a tough league, you know what I mean? As you know, of course, they're a Class B school. They play a lot of Class A schools in the gold. But, you know, to lose like that on their home court, they had a good district run, you know what I mean? So a lot of expectation next year. Going to be back at Ferndale. We'll see what happens when the district comes out in June, where Ferndale will be landing at. Of course, the next district to recap was going to be Warren at Warren Woods Tower. Of course, Hazel Park did not. I mean, they lost by 22 on Warren de La Salle. Of course, Warren de La Salle ended up being the team that now is at the regional now. They end up moving out to the regional. With Hazel Park, their future is bright. They got 3 freshmen who played, you know what I mean? So they got some talent coming back next year. So it's a team I don't want to see next year for sure. It's going to be Hazel Park because they're a good enough team, I think, to give teams a lot of fits heading into 2015, 2016. Next district we're going to recap is the one at Walled Lake Central. You know, when I look at West Bloomfield, you know, they lost a tough one to Walled Lake Central. Of course, Tristan Jackson ended up fouling out. West Bloomfield had a chance to come back and win that game late, but unfortunate circumstances did not happen there. West Bloomfield had a heck of a year. Of course, the Co-Blue champions. They were in a tough district. Walled Lake Central was the team that ended up winning that district, having to knock off Walled Lake Western. Of course, in that district, there was a game that was 17-13. It was Walled Lake Western against Lakeland. And to look at that score and see only 30 points scored in that game, that's mind-boggling. You know, I know Lakeland likes to play stall ball a lot, you know, but, you know, just to keep the ball, I mean, where's the pressure defense? Where is it? You know, and then to see that score at the end of the third quarter, 14-10, are you serious? You know, so it is what it is, but it was kind of shocking to see that type of low scoring game. I've never seen that in a boys basketball game, you know, where the score read 17-13 in favor of one team in one game. Next district we're going to recap, of course, is the one at Detroit Renaissance that was won by the University of Detroit Jesuits. Of course, that matchup was, you know, I was very impressed with Southfield. They came back. I mean, like, battled UAD Jesuits to the very end. You know, I mean, like, they even led them after 3 quarters. And to do that against a good Cubs team, that was a game I thought Southfield, if Southfield would have won that game, I would have been really, really impressed with Southfield, you know, but I'm still impressed with Southfield. They battled to the death. They battled UAD Jesuit tough. And unfortunately, you know, they end up losing to UAD Jesuit, and now the Cubs are playing at their home gym, at Southfield's home gym, in the regional final, and it's an unfortunate situation for that. And also Farmington, you know, this is a team I could not figure out. Is when you look at the Falcons, it's a you know, this is a team that won the gold, but they've had some just absolutely mind-boggling losses. When you look at Farmington, this is a team I think next year is going to be all right. But, you know, for Terrence Porter, the consistency is a huge problem with this team. And consistency, you know, I take a quote from Greg Campy, from Oakland men's basketball coach Greg Campy. He said, consistency is a hallmark to greatness. at Farmington, I don't know if there's consistency right now. I really don't. Especially with what happened that season. Especially when you have in a situation where you ended up losing to Seaholm, and then you have a practice at 10 o'clock at night. It was that bad of a night. I don't know what to say. Farmington next year has got to increase, has got to be consistent next year if they want to be a championship contender. They won the gold this year, but they were not a consistent team at all. Not at all. And that's something they got to address. Next that you're going to mention is going to be the one at Bloomfield Hills. At North Farmington, of course. North Farmington did advance into that district to the regional there. They backed up Birmingham Brother Rice. It was a good matchup, but North Farmington shot at least 12 threes in that game to knock off the Warriors. I know that Bloomfield Hills, they struggled. They lost to Birmingham Brother Rice. It was not even close, but it was a tough year for the Blackhawks, and it was going to be that even, but a lot of it was, the Dwayne Graves situation over there. It was an unfortunate situation over there that ended up costing their season there. Another, of course, Seaholm knocked off Harrison. Harrison, of course, John Rexroth was his senior year there, of course. His dad is, of course, he works at Channel 7. He's their chief meteorologist, Dave Rexroth, who ended up losing an eye in July, which was shocking. But Harrison had an all right year, but I'm curious to see what happens to them next year. Seaholm loses their two best guards, Austin Roth, and I'm not sure the other one is, but they had a really good year over there at Seaholm. Like I said, we'll see what happens over there. Next one we're going to recap is at Royal Oak. That was won by Oak Park. Oak Park knocked off Royal Oak. Of course, the Ravens. Oh, no, sorry. Oak Park beat Berkeley, sorry. Lathrop was the one that knocked off Royal Oak, excuse me. Southfield Lathrop had an interesting year. They got a guy in Fred John. Next year, he's going to Toledo. Of course, Toledo shockingly did not make the NCAA tournament. No, did not make a postseason tournament, so I was kind of disappointed with that. But Fred John, of course, he was a good player, a very good player for Southfield Lathrop, and now he's going to move on and play with them. Jonathan Williams, another Lathrop standout over there at Toledo. I just think that Lathrop's going to be, they're going to be in a good, they're going to be fine next year. Even though they lose a lot in the red, I expect them to do well. Royal Oak was a young team this year as well. Ravens, I think, are going to be fine. Even though, next year, I think it's going to be very interesting when you look at it with the Ravens. It is going to be what it is. Groves had an okay year, even though they finished last in the blue. You look at Groves on their first year coach. It's kind of tough to adjust to a system and what Groves had to go through. And, it is what it is with Groves. So Groves had a nice year. Berkeley, of course, Jonathan Radner had a really good year. Walking out Syracuse next year. He lost his dad in the middle part of the season. It's sad and unfortunate. Hearts go out to him and his family. But Berkeley had a really nice year. They battled Farm to the very end. They ended up losing that game in the last game of the regular season. And then Oak Park's a team that has a lot of uncertainty. When you look at the Knights, when you look at Oak Park, this is a team, Howard McKinnis is back next year. But you lose Rodney Scales. You lose, I think Devin Mills is a senior. You lose Mario Garrett. Oak Park was a solid team. You know what I mean? Even though they had, I think what really killed them was, that whole Brian Tipton incident, where he allegedly ended up going on a computer trying to change some of his players' grades, including one Kevon Fuller. Fuller's no longer at Oak Park anymore because of the academics over there. And it's an unfortunate situation when you look at it. And, Fuller's got a lot of D1 potential, a lot of upside, but, he messed up his whole junior career. He messed it up, and now, I'm not sure how he's going to do at Detroit Pershing. I'm not sure how they're going to do over there, but, I wish him nothing but the best of luck over there at Detroit Pershing. But, we don't know if Brian Tipton's going to coach again. We don't know if he's going to coach. Could he coach? Could he get a coaching job? Absolutely. He could probably get one in Detroit. I mean, he can get one in Detroit or anywhere. I mean, he's a good coach, but what happened over there at Oak Park, it's an unfortunate circumstance. He should not have done it. If he would not have done it, who knows where Oak Park is right now? Who knows? But shoulda, coulda, woulda, Next district we're going to recap is at Troy Athens. Of course, this was the place where the infamous buzzer beater by Chris Barton occurred over there at Troy Athens. I mean, there's a good video by Pat McIntyre of the Oakland Press. Good man, by the way, Pat McIntyre. You read what he you could see that shot. You know what I mean? When I look at that shot, it was contested. He had a nice fade back jumper, 3-point shot, and to see Troy Athens, they were devastated. You know what I mean? That's a tough way to lose a game like that. Especially when you're a team that has 10 seniors, and what Troy Athens has, and to see what happened to them, it hurts. Sometimes it's the hurt of basketball. You know what I mean? It sometimes hurts because I know my brother was in it. You know what I mean? I know how he felt when Oakland lost to North Dakota State, but I also know how he felt when he won 2 Summit League titles and went to the NCAA tournament. I mean, that's the beauty of basketball. You know what I mean? You don't know what to expect. In Avondale's case, this was where Avondale won a district championship. It's the first championship since Tim Morton coached the state championship team in 2002 when Avondale was in Class B. Troy had an interesting year themselves. They battled they ended up losing to Pontiac. Pontiac's a team I can't figure out because he's a team that beat Troy. And then when they played Troy Athens, they tried stalling. I mean, the score at halftime was 10-8 Troy Athens. And I don't know what happened in the second half. I don't know. It was 32-10 in the second half. And I don't know if the players quit on Coach Ben Kelso. I don't know if they quit on Coach Ben Kelso. I don't know if they were overwhelmed or if Troy Athens found a way to get going. And, it's an unfortunate situation over there, you know what I mean, with Pontiac. They got a lot of questions next year. They still got Jalen Kelso coming back and Robert McDonald coming back for the Phoenix. So Pontiac, I think, will be all right heading into next year. And then you look at the recap at Clarkston. Of course, Clarkston still undefeated, knocking off Rochester Adams. Adams, of course, beating Lake Orion. If it had not been for a intentional foul call, I don't know what happens to that Lake Orion game with them. Adams. It was a really close game throughout until that call. It started off a 13-0 run by Adams, and that was your whole ball game right there. When you look at it, against an improved Lake Orion team, I think Lake Orion's gonna be a team to watch next year for sure. And then Clarkson and Oxford, of course. Oxford's a team. This is a team that loses a lot next year. I mean, you lose Connor Elzerman. He was a very deadly 3-point shooter. You lose Mason Virus, who's a deadly 3-point shooter. Very good player for them. If he's not playing college ball somewhere, I'd be very disappointed. Then you lose Delvino Alexander. Of course, he was a very good athlete. You know what I mean? He's a good athlete, especially what he can bring to the party. And then, of course, the big one you lose is Jamal Thomas because even though he's a sophomore, I've been hearing a lot of rumors he's going to go to Chicago. And his mom's had some issues with Oxford. I know he was suspended over there, for the season over there. And it's an unfortunate situation if Jamal Thomas does leave Oxford. But but they do got some solid playmakers coming back. But Oxford's going to be a whole different ball club next year. When you look at it, when you especially lose those 4 type players who are very, very good athletes. And then, of course, Stony Creek's a team that, they still return John Ryder and John Pasancola. This is a team, I think, Stony Creek, they're gonna be an all right team next year for for Coach Steve Norgrove. Then Rochester, of course, go 0-21, you know, but you still got a very good backcourt to rely on Hunter Bazerka, and then you got gotta figure out the guy's name. I know the last name is Becerra, you know what I mean, but I know Paolo very well. It's his brother. I know she's a good. I mean, he'll be a good player. I mean, for sure, for Rochester next year when you look at it. Now we're gonna preview the regionals. The regional matchups: Clarkson versus Avondale. That's at Troy at 6:00 on Monday. You look at that matchup. I just think that in the end of the day, I think Clarkson's gonna win that game because they got too much size, too much depth. The difference that game, I think, is going to be Andrew Myers, I think. And then you got, and then you got the inside game. I think Jonah Newblatt's going to have a huge game against Avondale. I think Barton will have a good game. But at the end of the day, I just think we're looking at Clarkson versus Macomb Dakota regional final. And then you look at that matchup with Clarkson, Macomb Dakota. A lot of people are saying Clarkson wins that game. I'm going the other way around here. I'm going to say I like Dakota here because the difference is going to be those two transfers from Mount Clemens. Because you look at that matchup with Clarkston, it's a bad matchup for the Wolves. Because you look at those. I mean, the first time Clarkson Macomb Dakota played, it was at Macomb Dakota. They didn't have their transfer players. I think it's going to be a closer game this time around. I think Dakota sneaks by Clarkson by a single point, and it'll be unfortunate for Coach Dan Fife and his team. It'll be very unfortunate, you know what I mean? But I think Macomb Dakota is going to win that game, because I think the expectation of Clarkson, the pressure there that they're handling, I think it's going to be too much for that Wolves team. Even though Clarkson's got a lot of good players, I just think Dakota's going to find a way and win that game. Unfortunately for Clarkson. The other games at Southfield, of course, North Farmington and Oak Park. This is a game if both teams had their full health of players, I think this would be a heck of a game. I just think North Farmington's better right now than Oak Park because you got Kevon Fuller's not there anymore. You got Oak Park. You got North Farmington near full strength, even though no Billy Thomas. You still got Jerome Rogers, Anthony Quasca, Jacob Jobert, and got Kayla Hogan. So I think the difference that game is going to be Jerome Rogers. In the day, I think it's going to be a close game, but I think North Farmington's going to play UD Jesuit. In my upset special, I'm going to take North Farmington to win that regional because I think the Raiders can knock off the Cubs because Billy Thomas's influence is going to have a huge dividend in that game. I think it's going to have a huge influence in that game. I think North Farmington is going to be a team that ends up moving on in the to the state quarterfinals, possibly taking on Macomb Dakota. It would not surprise me if Clarkson and North Farmington meet in the quarterfinals, but I think it would be a very interesting matchup. I think North Farmington will advance and win that Southfield regional. Like I said, we'll see what happens heading into the campaign. And the other side, I just think that UD Jesuit would be too much for Redford Thurston. And the other side, I just think personally, I think, it wouldn't surprise me if Clarkson beats Macomb Dakota, but I just don't know if it's going to be a lot different this time around because of those transfers from Mount Clemens. So we'll see what happens. We wrap it up here. We'll wrap it up here. Got spring sports going around. I think soccer starts this weekend, so we'll see what happens heading into the year. Okay, now everybody, I'm going to sign off here tonight. I'm Sammy Termina. Signing off. Good night, and God bless.
OAA Now is produced at Orion Neighborhood Television, Lake Orion's community media outlet. To learn more about ONTV, visit our website at www.orionontv.org or call us at 248-393-1060.